What's going on YouTube? This is Rybo at the bench, and today I have a head-to-head video of the two Boker Kalashnikovs, the AK-74's. Before we get started, as some have requested, a wristwatch check. So this is a 1970 Seiko automatic with that really nice sunburst gray dial. Really cool. Sweet little watch, and it's about 50 years old and keeping great time. So that's awesome. All right. Okay, so this is the second time that I've filmed this video, and the reason is I filmed the video, I went through all my categories here, I did my little voting buttons here, and at the end, what I realized was something should have been very easy to predict. These are pretty much the same knife, but just scaled down. So there are a few key differences, and I'll talk about those, but at the end of the day, there's really only three categories that I can rank or put these head to head on. Everything else, when you look at scales, pocket clip, the blade, the steel, the lock system, it's the exact same. And so it's really not any point in doing a head-to-head. If you're wondering how the head-to-head turned out, it was 2-1 in favor of the Boker. I'm sorry, in favor of the large AK-74 before I did the intangibles. And the intangibles, this one probably would have come away with it. But I'll talk about that a little bit. So instead, I thought there are probably people out there trying to decide which one is right for me. You want to get an AK-74, you want to get one of these Bokers. They've gotten a lot of great reviews, and so you're trying to decide between the large and the small version. And so I thought I'd just film a video talking about my experience with them, and maybe that will help you, maybe not, but there we go. So I guess I'll just run through some things about the knives, and I'll do kind of my typical baseline measurements. So, I have never owned an automatic knife. So large version, you're looking at 3.7, and small version 2.0, 2.1, somewhere in there. There we go. I've never owned an automatic knife, not out of any principle. I've just never really seen the appeal. To me, there's not a ton of difference between a spring-assisted flipper or a flipper or whatever, and an automatic. Large, you're looking at 3.1 inches in terms of sharpened blade length. And the small, you're looking at around 2.24. So I've never owned one before, but I saw a Blade HQ email, and it had this, exclusive color, Tyranny Teal, which is a little bit goofy. But I really liked it. 0.48 inches on the small version, and you're going to be looking at 0.52 on the large. Obviously, a little bit more if you talk about these ridges here. And then in the pocket, let me just do that real quick, and I'll finish talking. 4.28 on the large, and 3.28 on the small. All right, so this one's bigger, this one's smaller, this one's heavier, this one's lighter. There you go. Just saved some, could have saved some time. All right, but I saw this color pop up. I thought it was super cool. I know it looks, probably a lot of guys think it looks pretty girly, but I don't know. I think it's pretty cool. So I rushed out and I ordered this one. I believe I paid around $30 for it. I got this guy, opened it up, and within 5 minutes, I went out to the site and ordered this one, and I believe I paid right under $40 for it. And the reason for that was this one was just too small. I like small knives, I really do. The Dragonfly 2, the CRKT Pilar, even the Spyderco FRN Chaparral. I tend to like smaller knives as long as the ergonomics are there. Unfortunately, on this one, they're just not. But I was so impressed with the knife itself that I just realized I bought the wrong size. And so I rushed out and I ordered this one, and it showed up 2 days later. I think I ordered it on a Saturday. It was there on a Monday. So props, Blade HQ, very nicely done there. And so I got this one, and whoa, that's great. Dropping knives here. There we go. And so I ordered this one, and have been very impressed. And I never really thought that I'd be an automatic knife guy. I've never really even liked the look of this knife, but I am totally sold now. This bigger version feels like it was custom made for my hands. And typically I don't love when there are finger grooves that tell you exactly where you're supposed to be. It just doesn't really make it flexible to people with different different size hands. But this one, man, just feels so perfect in my hand. I mean, it really feels like it's custom made. It just locks right in. Small version for me, I have a little bit larger hands. The small version for me does not work at all. You can see if I do my regular grip on this knife, I'm coming over each of these because they're just way too small. So, I think there are some knife companies that when they do a small version of a knife, they don't just do literally a mini-me. They actually kind of revisit some of the dimensions and make sure everything still makes sense. This knife does not. So this is literally just a scaled down knife. And the problem with that is that you have perfectly sized, finger grooves here for your hand to lock into that just feel very nice. And the problem is when you scale those down, just no one really has fingers this size. So like even if I do my fingertips, there I can get 4 fingers on it, but like, is that really a grip that you want to use on a knife? I don't think so, right? So just, if they had just taken this out and just had this kind of a smooth, I know it would have messed up the looks of the knife, or really even just had 3 instead of 4, I think that this would have been a much better knife. But for that reason, I grabbed the large size, and for me, really that is reason alone that the large size is much better for me than the small one. So this will be staying in the collection. This one will not. Couple other things. The action is a little bit different on both of these. So when I first got the small version, I thought, it's a little bit too snappy for me. And it was just kind of jerking a little bit. You have a smaller knife with spring tension in there, and it just was a little bit too snappy. That said, I was not used to automatic knives at the time, and it's worn in quite nicely. This one now feels incredibly good to me. Just very, very nice. It does occasionally not lock up if I'm kind of not pressing all the way in there. So you can have some times where like you press in that button lock and release it, and you can cause it to kind of stop the lock. It doesn't happen very often, maybe 2-3 times that I've noticed that. But otherwise, it feels very good in terms of the lockup, and I really like the action. This one, I actually expected to be less snappy just because a little bit larger knife maybe handle that tension a little bit better, but unfortunately, I don't know if you can tell that, but it is really snappy, and hopefully that wears in a little bit. Yeah, I mean, it jerks your hand a little bit, which isn't great. And the other thing that's not awesome about the large size is you get that noise. And I'm hoping that goes away. You don't get that at all here. At all. And so in a lot of ways, this is the better lock and the better deploy. This one, that just drives me absolutely nuts. I can't tell if that's the spring or if that's just the button that's rubbing up against the metal. I think it's the spring, not positive, but either way. The other thing with this guy, obviously with an automatic knife like this, you have so much spring tension on there that you really want to use 2 hands to close a knife, and I think that's what everyone would recommend. However, there are going to be times where you just can't do that. You got something in your other hand or whatever. With the small version of the knife, I've had plenty of success just kind of doing that right there, no problem. Even doing kind of a one-handed close is not really a big deal. With spring-assisted knives, whether automatics or just spring-assisted, sometimes that can be an issue because if you miss it, then it flies back and it can be unsafe. I've had more of an issue with that here because that spring is just really, I mean, that's a springy spring. And so closing this one-handed is just not super enjoyable. You can kind of do one of these, but you just, by the end of it, you feel a lot of tension right there. And you can see what I just did. I just kind of blocked the deploy just to feel how much tension is behind that. I do think that'll wear in a little bit, but that's just one thing to keep in mind is that this is going to be probably easier to open and close than this guy. It's just going to take a little bit more. But apart from that, I think it's the same knife. The pocket clip is absolutely incredible on both knives. No real difference there. It's a scaled down version. I am very impressed with the pocket clips on these AK-74's. They are one of my favorite budget pocket clips, something that many people cannot seem to get right. A knife like this just absolutely nails, in my opinion. I believe I incorrectly also identified the scales as some kind of plastic in one of the videos. That is incorrect. These are aluminum scales. You know, I'm sure that this color will start to chip off at some point, but it's held up just fine so far. I actually like the scales a lot. It's, you know, texture without being too aggressive. I think it looks fine. You know, I wish the ridges or the ribs kind of design here was not just like glossy like that. I wish there was some texture there, but you know, not a big deal. Other things, the blade is, you know, fine. Not my favorite design, but it slices just fine. And you've got the same steel AUS-8 in both. You've got a button lock on both. Yeah, I think that's it. So for me personally, there's no question. This is the knife for me. I don't think it's going to be leaving my collection anytime soon. One, I think it's cool to have an automatic knife in the collection for videos and whatnot. I actually think it's going to be a great yard working knife because it just gets out of the pocket so quickly. It carries so well, and it's bright, which I like in a yard knife. So if you drop it, you're not going to lose it and run over it with the lawnmower, which I have almost done on numerous occasions with this knife, which just like, you know, my grass is brown, not green. So if I drop it in the grass, it's gone. But yeah, so for me, no question, it's going to be this knife. This is really cool. I just need, you know, hands that are half the size in order to use it. So this one's going to be going off to my buddy Russ, and so look out for this one, Russ, soon. So hopefully this helped you. If you have any more info, questions, feel free to post in the comments, and we'll see you next time. Thanks.